when do you at an adult age actually get to pause your life and focus 100% on you and not your work or your family or role as a parent or whatever other responsibilities that you might have? When do you actually get to pause life for a couple of weeks and be with a team of people and focus on your own well-being to move forward?
Welcome to the Redbeard Embodiment Podcast. I am your host, Alex Green, and I'm on a mission to bring the power of embodiment to people all around the world. In this podcast, we explore how embodiment practices, trauma healing, and knowledge about the human nervous system can help us find our ground, discover new sources of meaning, and create connection in an ever-changing world. The deepest change is embodied change. All right. Well, I am so excited to be sitting down. It's afternoon for me, and it's but different time of day for Simba. We can let him tell us, but excited to be sitting down with Simba Stenqvist, who is from Sweden, but no longer living in Sweden, but based in Chiang Mai, Thailand, and where he runs a retreat center and healing center along with his wife. And since I think around 2018, we can hear about this story. The name of Simba's center is Living with the Spirit. And Simba and I connected as TRE providers, but also trainers. So we teach TRE, tension and trauma releasing exercises to people. And so Simba is one of my newer, more recent colleagues. I've been slower to meet some of the folks on your side of the world, Simba. Although I know a couple in Sai Kani in Asia and some of the folks in China doing TRE there, but was recently connected with Simba and was excited to hear about your how you're fitting TRE into a bigger picture. Your own personal story, journey with embodiment, different healing practices, martial arts background, something a little bit in common with me. So my thinking was it would just be mostly fun kind of to hear your story. And then I kind of, on the TRE side, I kind of like to hear how other people describe it and what they emphasize, and then just compare some notes on how you put it into practice. Because like me, there's other modalities, other healing contexts, or even spiritual contexts like meditation. So I very much want to hear how you fit neurogenic tremoring and TRE into the bigger scope of your work in the world. But anyway, so Simba, thanks for joining at 6:15 a.m., something like that.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, that's correct. 6:15 a.m. I'm usually up at this time, so it's not a showstopper for me.
You can handle it. All right, good.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, I guess my journey really is self discovery. That's been my whole passion. Like when someone asks me, "Who are you?" I'm always like, it's so easy to say, this is what I do, this is my age, and I'm from here.
Yeah.
But I think in my case, it's really mixed together, who I am and what I do, because it's just like TRE. It's a self-expression, what we created here, me and my wife in Thailand, that we created a place that we can heal and that other people can heal. And it's the accumulation of everything we learn along the way. How do we create a work environment where people actually feel safe in the nervous system and are excited to go to work?
Yeah.
Which for me, until a couple of years ago, was almost unheard of.
Yeah.
And also, how do you create a living environment where you actually live with your clients for 3 weeks at a time? That's still not 24/7 hospice or always standby. So I think all of these different qualities came from a lifelong experience, but also looking for more peace, more tranquility, and just a way to live life, essentially, right? Because I felt that this can't be it. rush to work and try to get as much money as I can, and then I worry about having enough and
Yeah.
recessions and all of these things. So I think my journey started very early in looking for something else, right?
Yeah.
I sure I had 9 to 5 jobs growing up, but I was always looking for something different, something that wasn't conventional, something that was more of an expression of who I am
Mm.
rather than what I decide to do because I could potentially do that well and it's a well-paid job and
Yeah.
this is what people think I should do. And as you can probably hear, that's not always a popular opinion. So I was quite strong in my opinions of wanting to be free,
Okay.
and that took me a couple of years to do that without being too strong about it, right? That I that I could be open and express myself in a way that is not conflictuous in nature, that is harmonious. I can say my own truth, but it doesn't mean I have to go into a conflict around it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's also basically how we landed here in the first place. We really looked for different opportunities to create an environment that is, I wouldn't say free from conflicts, but that is more relatable, understandable, and looking at life through the polyvagal theory lens, really. That whatever happens between us is an expression of unresolved stressors or tension or unmet need within us as individuals,
Yeah.
and that we use personally and professionally, that philosophy. So I think finding TRE and the polyvagal theory was really a lifelong searching for something that to me makes sense. That's
Totally.
not just this is the way it is. Suck it up. That's the world.
Right.
Tough
No,
luck if you
totally.
don't
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it.
And let's definitely come back to the polyvagal theory because I resonate with yeah, it's sort of it's a model that captures so much. So let's circle back to that. W Usually I go in chronological order, but I wanna do the opposite today. So here's what I'm thinking. What I'd love to hear about is the founding your retreat center, Living with the Spirit, and the founding principles of it, a little bit, you started it in 2018 and kinda what has been the vision and mission, but then also, like, the format, because you do these intensives where people are, on healing retreat, full-time residential for, I believe, 3-week blocks, or you'll clarify that. So so paint a picture specifically of living with the spirit first, and then I think I wanna go back in time and hear about, I don't know, how you found I wanna hear more about the backstory, but let's start with this. Is that okay?
That's great. That sounds
Yeah, yeah.
amazing. Yeah. Lead me the way.
Okay, alright. Well, yeah, maybe just, like, the idea, because I think you set it up when I mean, you had to you moved to do this. You left your home country. Maybe that's a good place to start. Somehow you had the idea that you wanted to do this in Chiang Mai. How did that happen?
That was a very interesting story because I was never dissatisfied with Sweden over large. Like it's a lovely country. I really like all the opportunities I had from it. I still have a lot of friends and family living there. I just felt I was looking for something more,
Mhm,
something different, a different way of life. So it really came from an inner searching. So I was
mhm,
traveling for many years. I started as soon as I was done with high school, around 18. I was
mm,
working for 6 months, traveling, trying to find my way in the world.
mm.
And I think it never stopped really. It kept on going for 20 so years.
Yeah.
And I did one of these exercises where like a personal developmental course.
Yeah.
And in one of the exercises, they said, describe your dream life.
Okay.
Like, where are you geographically at? What kind of
Yeah.
people do you have around you? How does it look like? And it was like 30, 40 different questions to answer.
Yeah.
I've done tons of them, like you've probably done too, when you're on
Sure.
a journey of
Yeah.
looking for something else. So I did it, put it into a moving crate, put it into my storage, end of the deal. And then I knew Sarah, my wife, since quite a few years back. We were neighbors. We were training in the same MMA club, mixed martial arts. And I saw that she moved to Thailand. I believe this was 2016, maybe 17, 16. And I was kind of following that journey and asking her about how is that, and because I've been to Thailand before, but I'd only been to the south.
Okay.
And in my ignorance, I thought I was kind of like Thailand is an island. I didn't even think about Thailand as the mainland. So I didn't really know much about it, right?
Right.
Because the south of Thailand is very different from the north of Thailand. Not
Yeah.
saying better or worse, it's just different.
Yeah.
It's a very different world.
Yeah.
So first time I came to Chiang Mai, I didn't even know the place existed.
Mm.
I had no conception of it. But somewhat, everything was familiar. I was like, hmm. And then, long story short, I came back to Sweden after visiting Sarah the first time. And then we decided, we were together at that time. I decided to sell off everything I owned and move to Thailand.
Mhm.
And as I was doing that, I was clearing out my old storage. And I opened up this moving crate and I was like, what's this book? And I started going through it. And I kid you not, point by point, it was Chiang Mai. I didn't know of this place, but I had described it.
Wow.
Like close to a big city, but close to nature. So you
Yeah.
can go into a mall in Chiang Mai and buy a BMW, and you can
Yeah.
go half an hour out of the city into the jungle. And if you get lost, no one will find you, right? So you have both sides.
Yeah.
And I think that's really kind of how I realized this is the right place because I had envisioned it, I had manifested it, and then put it to the side. So there was
Mm.
like no memory of it,
Yeah.
but clearly it was there.
Hmm.
And that's kind of the yeah, that's kind of how we manifested it without knowing that I had manifested.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So when did you move? Was that in 2018 or before that?
2018 we moved, and at that point we had a collaboration with one of Sarah's at that point teachers that was working with mindfulness and meditation and could say spiritual development.
Sure.
And once we arrived, we realized fairly quickly that there's a cultural difference with us and this person, not saying better or worse. It's just cultural difference, which,
Mhm.
it's normal. You come from the other side of
Happens.
the world.
Sure. Yeah.
But it was also a difference in when do you want to start this business? So this person wanted to start his business in 6 months, and we were like, we're here with two travel bags each and savings. It was like,
Yeah.
we need to go now.
Now. Yeah.
Exactly. Western mind, it was today. We need to
Yeah.
start today. So after a little bit back and forth, we realized that it doesn't make sense for this person to rush and start something if they don't feel it,
Mm.
but we need to honor where were you coming from as well, and we don't have 6 months of vacation to do
Mm.
because we were ready. The momentum was then. So we
Yeah.
moved into the city and kind of went, now what? Right? Because we kind of did a big thing of it too. Like we sold off everything home. We invited everyone into a big party,
Mm.
got rid of apartments, jobs, and all of these things.
Yeah.
So that's kind of really where the journey started when we went into Chiang Mai.
Got it. So once it got clear that you were kinda not gonna continue with the collaborator because the timing and whatnot. So then at that point, was it you and Sarah? You were the founding team?
Correct, correct.
Yeah.
So there was an assistant company that we were going to go into and merge with, right? But Since that didn't happen, we are two foreigners,
Yeah.
and the ownership structure in Thailand is good, but it has a little bit of a different structure to set up a business when you are a foreigner. So there's a few steps. There's no problem, but there's just a few steps to do that.
Yeah.
Um, so we didn't really know how to set it up because that's not what we didn't know anyone. Basically, that's the thing. You need to have
Right.
staff. Like you
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
speak the language, you don't know anyone. You're in a new country.
Yeah.
So what we did was that I posted on Facebook, let's just do a workshop. And it was so many people coming and so many people asking me about body work and treatments and sessions. And where I come from in Sweden, what I do is, I mean, fairly unique, but there's people doing it, right? It's not like you're gonna be the only one doing it. But when I came here, it seemed like no one was specializing in so many different fields. So what
Yeah.
happened when I arrived was really there was a longing to work with the services the way that I do holistically.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of professional that started to seek me out.
Yeah.
And once I got good results with them physically and mentally, they started to refer me to, there's a big scene for rehab centers in Chiang Mai, drugs and alcohol and any kind of addiction. There's a big scene for that.
I see.
So I got invited in to work as a consultant and also directly with a lot of clients. And we
Yeah.
also had people that came to us after they done their initial detoxification of chemicals and some initial therapy. And there's kind of one step before you go back home to your place of origin, like they call it sober houses, or halfway through, where you start to kind of not focus on the chemical addiction but more on the lifestyle.
Yeah.
How do I live in a sober way? How does that
Yeah.
look like? How do I change my habits?
Yeah.
And I think that was also a big pivot point for us when we started to meet a lot of people and find that, okay, this is people that actually want to work with us and they see a need for what we do. And
Yeah.
so that's kind of how a big part of the company started.
Oh, cool. W- Some of and that I think is maybe pre-TRE, right? So when you're talking about your holistic way of working, you're kind of you're this is prior to tremoring, is that correct?
Correct.
So fill us in on that. Like, I only know a little bit fascial work, maybe, I don't know the things that you were part of your diversity of things. But yeah, what was your toolkit at that time?
Yeah, so my background was a body work, as I say. And body work for me simply means it's not just massage.
Yeah.
You also have mental coaching, mindfulness. You look at stress habits, nutrition. Was a personal trainer as well. So, and of course, I did a lot of massage therapy, like you mentioned, fascia work, deep tissue massage, Swedish classic. But at that point, I did know of TRE. I've heard about it when I did my initial massage training,
Yeah.
but there wasn't anyone really around in my town, and it was kind of someone to mention it in like a passerby moment. So
Yeah.
it stood out, but I never tried it. I
Sure.
never. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And what happened when we were in Chiang Mai was that this lady come for a consultation one day. And normally, if you have a consultation, you share about your life. But this lady was really sharing her life story, and I was kind of like, okay, this is interesting. And then she started talking about this tool TRE, and I was like, that's interesting. Like I thought she was here to share her story for her to figure something out.
Right. 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 Right.
But
Right.
she was so passionate, and she just talked about it and what he does and how it looks like and how it helped her life.
Yeah.
And it's just around the corner. My train is just around the corner from where you guys live. So we're like, okay, let's try it out. And I remember from the first session, I walked out and I was like, I'm gonna work with this. This is something I'm gonna do a lot of. I don't know how, in what capacity, in what shape or form,
Yeah.
but yeah, this
What
this is here to stay.
what that I'm laughing because it was like that for me too, so I can relate. But what struck you so much? What do you remember about that? What grabbed you like that?
The body's ability to express itself. Many times I could be like, oh, I feel this. Oh, their body wants to do that. There could be a sensation of it. This is not a subtle hint. Your body is literally speaking its mind. It's literally showing us what's going on. And it's like a story. It's like a dance. It's like a theater or a movie. It starts to play out a scene and it starts to express itself in ways that, especially for me that done martial arts and workout and been fairly interested in my body my whole life, all of a sudden my body starts to do things. I'm like, what is going on here? I work with my body my whole life. I had no idea it could express itself like this. I think that really was a big aha moment for me that hmm, I'm more in my head than I think.
Mhm, mhm. Wow. Okay,
Yeah,
so you knew this was gonna be a piece of the puzzle. Yeah,
for sure, for sure. Because if I feel it,
yeah,
definitely other people that's in the same
yeah,
interests or have the same backgrounds as I have are
yeah.
gonna like it and benefit from it and enjoy it.
Super cool. Okay, so fast forward a little bit in time. So now it's maybe, kinda to present day in a sense. So what paint a picture of how you're living with a spirit, how it's functioning. Like, yeah, what would you if somebody met you, they were traveling to Thailand and they said, "I'm here to do some deep healing work," and you say, "Oh, you I've got a, you're talking to the right person." How would you describe what's going on over there?
Oh, it's a very good question. A little bit like TRE, I would say, definitely. You have an idea of what's going on in your life. You have an idea of what you need or what you should work on. And TRE is one of the tools that we work with. So when people come here, it's a strong mirror because first and foremost, we live about 45 minutes outside of the city, more up in the mountains. So there's rice fields, there's mountains around, and not much else. There's nature basically. So you
Yeah,
don't have airplanes, you don't have distractions. There isn't a lot of people that speak English around this neighborhood. So when you come here, you really get to meet yourself on a very deep level because of the practices that we do, because of the environment itself. So when people come here, they usually start to reflect on more than what they initially signed up for. So let's say you feel a bit of stress and maybe something's going on in your body, and then you talk to your wife or your partner and like, okay, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna invest in some time and go to Thailand and do a 3 week retreat.
yeah,
You have an initial idea of why you do it, right? There's an
right.
initial spark.
Yeah,
And as you arrive and you start to work, you might notice that this initial spark that started way back. So it's a little bit like a rabbit hole. You start to notice that the journey goes a little bit deeper than 3 weeks.
mm,
And that can be a little bit overwhelming for some people, but usually they become very interested and very motivated in, wow, there is so much more that I can actually do for myself rather than I have so many things to fix. So
yeah,
there's like a shift that happens when people come in here.
mm,
And I really think the perspective changed a lot for people. That's the main thing I hear when people leave here. That maybe they didn't solve all of the problems. Maybe they haven't practically done all the things they set out to do, but they know how to. They change the perspectives and they learn the tools and the structure to continue this journey back in their country of origin.
Yeah.
and they have a successful start, and they're at a different place than when they started.
Yeah.
And I think it's also quite rare. When do you, at an adult age, actually get to pause your life and focus 100% on you and not your work or your family or role as a parent or whatever other responsibilities that you might have? When do you actually get to pause life for a couple of weeks and be with a team of people and focus on your own well-being to
Mm,
move forward?
mhm. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
When so this is kind of a year round. I mean, that one thing I was impressed with when I spoke to you, it sounded like it's almost like, you do 3 weeks of, immersion time, and then you and your family take a couple weeks to reset, and then you repeat that multiple times for a year. Is that correct? Is that kind of the rhythm?
Correct.
Yeah,
So that is kind of the rhythm. And then we have usually December and May that we have done something differently. Um, so May usually is very hot in Thailand. So then we aim to go to Sweden and kind of do some work, but also see family and friends.
yeah,
In December, we found that most people don't want to do deep healing work. They kind of want to be with families and New Year's and all of this kind of things that happen. So that's been the setup.
yeah.
What we actually have done now is that we're moving away from the retreats into a academy more, an international academy. So it's both online, but it's also going to be in person, but it's going to be shorter than 3 weeks. So the reason I mentioned this is because the nature of our business started with plan A, and then plan A didn't happen, obviously, and we didn't
Yeah.
have a plan B. So
Mhm.
the nature of our business, our own personal journey, is to really follow the energy, kind of like in TRE, we say follow the organism, follow the
Sure.
body and the nervous system.
Yeah.
So we're really being guided because we have a mission that we want to spread this somatic healing tools to as many people as we can in the world globally.
Yeah.
And our retreat center had 4 spots. So it's fairly intimate, right? It's not a big,
4
like,
people at a time, is that what you mean?
yeah,
I see.
exactly. So it's
Yeah.
not 10, 20.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
4 people at a time. So it's a
Yep,
very deep journey for these 4 people. And we
yep.
have amazing stories, success stories. But if you have a mission that you want to change or make an impact in the world, 4 people at a time, it's going to take a little bit of time, right?
Mhm. Yeah,
So that's kind of why we parallel started around COVID time to build a online academy where TRE, of course, is the leading tool and modality that we train
yeah,
to spread this wider, like to more audiences, but also for people to. Not everyone can travel to Thailand, right? So how do people actually gain access to what we do without having to invest in a way that maybe they can't? So
right.
we have an online academy, and we also have almost like an online retreat, you can say. We have the group classes and one-on-one classes set up
Yeah,
parallel to the retreat. So many times people come for the 3 weeks and then they continue with us online with weekly sessions that
yeah,
runs parallel to these retreats. So so that's what we've been doing, and now we're focusing more on the teaching to spread this knowledge as wide as we can, because especially these days, I think stress and mental health is something that is very important for people to work with in natural ways.
yeah. Awesome. Well, so staying on the retreat for a moment, and I wanna hear more about the academy and then how you and the TRE certification, but, um, so now I'm getting a clear picture. So 4 people, very intimate, 3 weeks, set a rural area. Um, tell us what I mean, you shared a little bit of the outcome. People leave with a different perspective. They meet themselves. They get this pause that is so rare in adult life. I totally agree with that. Um, practically, what is a day like? Wow, does a person self-guide this journey? How do you structure, um, yeah, how do you design these retreats? Does it sort of everybody follows a set path, or it's individualized to some extent? I'd love to hear about that.
Definitely. So it's both. There is 3 group sessions a day. We start the day at 7 a.m. with a morning meditation that goes into morning movements, kind of getting the fascia going. And what we really like, the whole aim of the retreat is to build a healthy lifestyle routine. So the routine that you have during the retreat is something that maybe you can apply it 100% when you come home because you
Yeah,
got to
yeah, but
work
you
and
can
other
take some
things.
things with you. Yeah,
Exactly. So you can
yeah,
take the framework away.
yeah,
So there's a morning class, there's a 10 a.m. class and a 6 p.m. class. And there's different setups and structures to the classes, TRE being one, we have
yeah,
breathwork, and then we also have one-on-one session sprinkle out throughout the week. So Monday to Friday, you have this wake up at 7, 10 a.m. you have a class, 6 p.m. you have a class, and then in between there is a one-on-one session.
I
And
see.
on top of that, we also have a lot of self-study material for people to work with. And it really depends on why someone is coming. So something that happens many times when people come initially, when there's stress involved, they say, "That's it. I'm just going to do 3, 4 sessions. I'm here all day." And it's, wait and see. And then after a couple of days, they 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 do a session, they go to sleep. They barely wake up. They do a session, they go to sleep. And this is kind of what it looks like the first week.
Yeah, yeah,
And people don't realize that they're severely depleted and drained.
yeah.
So the structure of the retreat is really to have an opportunity to see what it is that's going on in your nervous system, but also to feel the difference from when you slow down. You don't pull the handbrake and just have you
Mhm.
know, a shock to the system.
Right, 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 right.
You gradually slow down.
Yeah,
And to further help that, we also have a detox protocol that we do throughout these 3 weeks. So the first week is more towards juice fasting and to really slow people down, to
yeah.
not sit and have a lot of stress and a lot of energy. We kind of bring them down a little bit so they can slow the tempo down and start to really go deep inside of themselves.
Mm, got it. Wow. Um, you mentioned polyvagal theory earlier as such a like a useful framework, and I'm guessing that you not only to your TRE students, of course, we have to teach them about the polyvagal theory. It's the map for the nervous system, but it sounds like that's pretty central. Like that, you do a lot of teaching, um, even to the retreat participants. I'm imagining you do a little bit of this sort of psychoeducation. Is that correct?
Definitely. We use it as the main framework, I would say, for people to the way that I look at it, it makes everything more relatable and it's very compassionate in nature. It takes away the ego from the equation. So it's less about you said this, I did that, this happened. You
Yeah.
can start to kind of coming back to my original story, that expression of a need, looking for something else, right? That you can see that your nervous system, your body has certain needs that it wants to express, has certain energies that it wants to work through, and that the mind and the body many times in a Western society is out of sync, which means we can have unfinished stress responses. Someone yells at me at work and I'm not able to yell back. I'm not able to say what I want to say. Obviously, I can't fight them physically, right? Makes no sense. And if I
Mhm.
just run away from anything that happens in my work scene, I'm not going to have a work either. I'm not going to get anything done.
Right.
So I think many times we internalize a lot of stress, and that becomes unfinished stress responses. And at times it comes to a threshold where there's just bubbles over and becomes too much. And that's usually when we see a confrontation with a loved one or friend or anyone for that matter, anyone at the wrong or right time, however you choose to see it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what the polyvagal theory really does for me, and when I teach it, it gives me a framework to look at what is that need that my body is trying to work through. What is that essence that's trying to be expressed rather than you said, you did, I did, and so on.
Yeah.
And I think the more, of course, boundaries and having our integrity in order, that we don't let anyone do anything to us or we do anything to anyone else. But I think the more we can start to look at interactions, human interactions, from this lens, the more compassionate we can become, because then we can start to speak to that need rather than to what is actually being said, because that can be a maze many times to just go in and try to go into semantics and clear that out.
For you regular listeners to the podcast, you know that about half of these episodes focus on TRE, tension and trauma releasing exercises. And I wanted to make sure that you know about the Redbeard TRE certification program, our educational platform to certify others. And we have both an online version of that I teach, as well as an in-person version of the training that my colleague Ellen McKenzie teaches in Madison, Wisconsin. TRE has been a life-changing modality for myself. It's open to people with any background. You can find more information at redbeardtre.com. So I imagine you kind of teach people how to kind of identify where their nervous system is from a polyvagal perspective. And, roughly speaking, there's sort of 3 states, although there's blended states, et cetera. But, there's kind of like a home base, ventral vagal, our beautiful home base of social engagement. And we're not particularly stressed. But then there's all these flavors of stress physiology, everything from, conflict to avoidance, so fight or flight or shutdown or withdrawal or collapse into more freeze categories. So do you kind of help people kind of learn that language a little bit so they can kind of identify where their nervous system is living, a lot of the time, something along those lines?
Definitely. So that's one of the first assignments, both when I teach the TRE provider training program, but also in the retreat when people are here, that I ask people, okay, let's go through. I also added numbers for it, just for the sake of it, from 0 to 10 through the
Sure.
different zones.
Yeah.
And I ask people to start to define the numbers. Like, how do you feel physically, mentally, emotionally? Is there a story or a recurring event that tells you this is where I'm at?
Yeah.
To get people to start to kind of look through that lens and realize, when I'm in this state in my nervous system, everything I look at is going to be from here. I might
Right.
think I'm right about everything because I'm angry and I'm defending myself.
Sure.
If you slow that down a little bit and take care of that activation in your nervous system, the way you interact with someone else and the way that you look at yourself is going to change. And ultimately, everything you look at is going to change, because the very lenses or the perspective you have of looking at yourself and life will start to change.
Yeah.
So that's something we teach our clients and guests when they come to stay with us quite early, because things will happen. Like, you go out to a country in the middle of nowhere, like we don't live in the city,
Right.
and you don't eat the food you want to eat, and you do a lot of practices that brings out a lot of unresolved stuff in you. Of course, where is all of this energy going to go at some point? So it's good to give a vantage point of what is it that actually is happening.
What is it that's happening? Yeah.
Yeah. Rather than, this is not what I signed up for.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that always happens. That always happens, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, no, I was with a TRE student today, and, going through a conversation I've had, I don't know, a few thousand times now, maybe in one with clients or students. And it's so this person's maybe been doing TRE for, a few months and liking it and staying with it. And now, um, they were asking, well, now I keep feeling all this frustration and, either during or right after the end of the tremoring session. Is this okay? Et cetera. And so the conversation I've had so many times, I say, well, I understand that being frustrated is that's hard. I empathize with that. And, this might be that kind of good news that we were talking about, where as when we shift states in the autonomic nervous system, it, we could see that as a very common sign of something moving. So the nervous system mobilizing. Maybe there was some freeze and immobilization that's now shifting over to more of a mobilization part of the polyvagal curve. So us as the providers, teachers, like we kind of hear it as I don't. We'll see if you agree with me or not, but like hear it as kind of a good thing. Like, okay, good, this is coming to the surface. As long as it's not overwhelming, great. Let's stay on the ride here. But for the person going through it, it's disconcerting. Nobody wants to. We don't exactly, you know, celebrate when challenging emotions and stuff start to come up. So I think sometimes as facilitators, we have to kind of help frame it. "Oh, this is good. Or this is this is normal. It makes sense that this would happen. But yeah, I'm imagining you have had the same conversation many times.
Oh, yes. I usually say anger is like winds in the sails, right? You're on a boat sailing around the world,
Yeah,
and the free state or the shutdown states is you're in the middle of the ocean. There's no wind.
yeah,
You don't see a way out,
yep,
and there is nothing propelling you forward.
yep,
So I mean, a wind might not always be in the favor. It might not always be in the direction you want to go. That the anger, that wind, it has a momentum. It's moving you. So it is usually positive in that sense because it allows for a change. It's like, "Oh, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna say this. I'm not gonna do this. I'm not gonna." So it's really like you said. It's more about how do we balance it. That's really what I look like, what I look at when I work with people. But I agree with what you say. It's I usually hear myself say that a lot. Someone comes in and like, "I really feel bad," and I'm like, "Oh, that's interesting. Tell me more." And they're like, "Do you just want me to feel bad?" No, but that's what like.
yeah,
That's kind of what we do here. We work through whatever is going up for you. If you feel good, then let's have a cup of tea and do something else.
right, right. Oh, that's so cool. Well, let's talk a little bit about TRE specifically. Well, because actually, well, let me here's what I'm thinking, or here's my question for you. So, you orient people towards the polyvagal map that and they learn about it. It sounds like that's a major part of your own framework when your framework for understanding the pathway of, what is healing, what is the resolution of incomplete responses as you shared before, what is the downregulation of stress. It's not abstract. It's not an abstract thing. It's a physiological process. You're explaining that really beautifully. Um, I think what I'd love to hear is, I imagine that you think of TRE as a really wonderful um, modality for helping a person learn how to navigate and to shift states in some ways within their nervous system. But I'm sure I think you're also a fan of other modalities that help in a polyvagal way as well. Maybe you could speak to that a little bit, how TRE is super awesome in that way, and how some other things are awesome as well.
So when I look at the process of how I'm working with these tools, I look at them as how did they show up in my life? Because anything I teach or practice, I was and many times am still a client of or student of, that I go and take sessions with my teachers and trainers and so on.
Right.
And I think the nervous system is the first gateway, right? So that's kind of how we built the retreat, is kind of based on, the nature of your question, that the first week is really just realizing where you're at,
Yeah.
landing, realizing where you're at, start to connect to yourself, start to really feel your body. And you might go from, yeah, I ask you, how do you feel? And you're like, yeah, good. Well, what do you mean? Huh? Right. To like you're saying, wow, I'm starting to feel angry. I'm starting to feel agitated, but I haven't done anything. Why am I feeling this? Right. So you start to actually see
Yeah.
beyond the cognitive
The
filter of
surface.
things, right?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
disturbances.
Yeah.
And from there, what I usually like to do is to work with traditional Chinese medicine, TCM. And the way I do that is by working a lot with the stomach. There's a lot of points in the stomach, and there's a lot of points around the body that can change the flow of energy. And when
Yeah.
we say flow of energy, people might not always follow. That can be blood circulation, can be lymphatic fluids, can just be the energy, right? Like when you start to feel a certain emotion, you might start to feel something somewhere in the body.
Right.
So working with these points, working with these practices, you can start to redirect that energy, so your brain and body starts to get a new option. Usually when I come to this point, I will feel angry. But now I come to this point and there's a pause between the stimuli and my reaction, right? And I think that's really where the freedom of choice resides within, that you create that pause.
Mm.
And we all, I would say all that I've met, hold a lot of tension in the stomach. Anytime I want to say something, anytime I don't want to say something or don't want to be somewhere and I cannot, and I tense down, I hold my breath and I tense my belly. And then someone comes and starts to push into that area, you're
Yeah.
naturally going to feel what's stored there. So
Right.
that's how the Chinisang, the Taoistic traditional Chinese stomach organ massage,
Yep.
is something that I work with a lot.
Yep. Yep.
And the elements of TCM is very interesting because there's points all over your body. I also use the emotional freedom techniques, the tapping,
Yep.
because
Yep.
once again, it kind of retrains your body and your brain how to handle all that energy. If
Yeah.
you're sad, if you're stressed, if you're angry, if you're upset, if you're worried, if you're anxious, those are different patterns of expression in your body.
Yep.
Hot, cold, shut down, have to say this. So different tools allow us to get this pause, which increase your ability of freedom to make new choices. So it's
Yep.
kind of like you're showing your brain and nervous system a new way of doing it. And I think the TCM, the massage that I mentioned, is great. I also use craniosacral therapy for people to really go deeper in and start to connect to the body on a deeper level and start to kind of feel. What's the most common thing I hear when I do cranial for people? Well, they usually say, I have never felt this relaxed before. I didn't know it was possible. And they usually say, it feels like I'm suspended in water, which is very interesting because that's basically what you connect to. You connect to the body being
The
comprised
fluids.
of
Yeah.
60 to 80% fluids.
Right.
And you start to connect to that. And that also changes your perspective of how you're looking at, this is firm
Right.
versus this is firm because there's an organization of things to make it firm here because of
Yeah. It's
whatever,
not
long
firm in
story.
the way that wooden steel bars are. It's a very different kind of firmness. Yeah.
It's a living structure. And when you
Right.
can start to feel that living structure and you can start to communicate with it, that's when the holistic health journey really begins, because now you're listening to every part of your body feeding you information rather than, this study says that I should do this. I like Alex. He has a great podcast and all the things he has, and I'm going to
Yeah.
follow everything he does. Yeah, that's
Right.
great. But the best thing you can do is learn how to listen to your own body and communicate with it. And that's really what I aim to do with all the different practices that we do. Breath work is something that we use a lot too,
Mm.
because every emotion in your body has a particular breathing pattern. So maybe something happened to you, maybe something stressed you out, and you held your breath, and then the event passed, and you go back to 99.5% of normal breathing, or 99%, but that 1% is still there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then you start to breathe into that, and you start to move into areas that might have been stuck or stagnated for years,
Mm.
and you start to remember things that happened that you thought you were okay with, you left behind because mentally I put a lid on it.
Mm.
The
Yeah.
body didn't have a chance to process it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's kind of how we weave the breath work in as a way to really, get the bellows going, the
Yep.
ribs and everything, and get
Good
this
image.
energy out.
Great image. That's
And
awesome. Mm.
what
I
else
love
do
that.
we have?
Yeah. Sound, you work with sound a little bit, right?
Yeah, so Mark does a lot of sound healing, and the sound is really, I tend to look at it more as vibration, right?
Sure.
Because
Yep.
we listen with our ears, definitely, but you listen with every cell of your body.
Yeah.
And much like TRE, the vibration goes into areas. And as I'm sure, I mean, from the TRE, we know that when there is tension, there's a story there. There is a protective mechanism, or there is a holding pattern of something, right? Whenever there's tension in the body, there is a holding pattern for whatever reason, not saying good or bad.
Yeah.
And once you get a certain vibration into it, whether it's TRE or sound healing or actual vibration from a
Yeah.
machine or from
Yeah.
someone rocking you working with, you start to open that up. You start to shift the
Mm.
very state of how those cells are reorganizing themselves, how those muscles are expressing themselves. So the sound healing really relaxes the body, and it helps the brain go through certain brain waves and cycles that we naturally have throughout our days, but also when we sleep.
Yeah.
And because of stress, those can get disrupted. So when we practice sound healing, you naturally help the brain to go through those different cycles and waves and the very cells of the body, which allows it to kind of restore its natural balance rather than being stiff and going from point A to point D, right? That you can go A,
Right.
B, C, D, and then you start to get a wider range of how you can travel in your brain, but also physically.
Yeah. That's a great description of
Yeah.
vibration and sound. Yeah, I love that. Um, I think what I want to close with, if it's okay, is to shift. We've been talking about healing, we've been talking about the nervous system. Um, Shift into, in the name of your work is, living with the spirit, and you know implicit, I think, in some of what you're talking about is, or referencing your own, which you would probably describe as you following your own spirit, or a spiritual journey. Share a little bit about that. How does what you're doing now match your own spiritual journey, and how would you describe that to others who are using that term?
It's a good question. Where I come from in Sweden, whenever you say spirituality or God or anything that sounds dogmatic, there is an aversion because a lot of the population is atheists, at least to their understanding. They have a lot of Christian values, but anything that comes close to that usually has like a recoiling effect, right? So
Yep.
the way that I explain spirituality from my perspective is really, what do I think is right and wrong, and how do I look at things? If I'm just showing up here today and I say, let's throw everything out that I know, all the stories, all the beliefs, anything, and let's start over right now. What is it that I make this world up to be for myself? My own views, my own opinion, what's real, what's not real, what's possible, what's not possible. And I think that's really the journey of spirituality for me. So the name Living with the Spirit came to me in a deep meditation because when I started out, I had a lot of fears with everything needs to be backed by science, like double blindsided and randomized trial studies and so on. And I think
Yeah.
science is great. I don't have anything against science, but I think is one side to the coin, right? There's like a yin, there's a yang. So there's dualities to it. And I remember, like Albert Einstein used to say, I can't remember. I'm so bad at quotes, but there's something like logic takes you from A to C, I think it is, and imagination takes you anywhere, right? And I think spirituality is really about that imagination that if you can perceive something in your mind and then create it, that's a spiritual process. Anything you look at in around you has been someone's image in their head, and then they have recreated it. And maybe someone said that was not possible. It's not
Mhm.
possible to jump on a plane and go to the other side of the world. Oh, you're
Right.
crazy. Now we're all doing it. It's not
Yeah.
possible to jump into a metal box and drive in faster than horses. Now we
Yeah.
all do it. So I think when it comes to spirituality for me in my own personal journey, it's what's possible, what's not possible, what do I deem as real, and how do I like to see things? How do I like to explain them for myself and for others? Me and you might look at the exact same situation or object, and we can have two complete different experiences due to our spiritual progress or process. Not saying that one has more or less, but it might just be going into very different directions.
Right.
So I think that really is the main key, your vantage point and what you do with it and how you choose to show up every day in the world for yourself.
Yeah.
And the biggest step is really to question yourself, what is mine? What is mine and what is something that I just inherit that I keep on pushing forward? I don't have to go and have a 9 to 5 job. The last couple of years has showed us that. There are thousands of different ways to make money, for instance. I don't
Mhm.
have to have a traditional family the way that maybe my parents and the previous generations have. I can be a digital nomad.
Mm.
There's so many different possibilities today that's already showing us that it is a spiritual awakening or process, but it doesn't have to be religious in nature. It's more in that context of what do I make life out to be and how do things work for me and what's my explanation? Because I think that's really the key, if you can start to see your own creation for anything in life and you have the self-empowerment, the confidence to act on it, and you can do anything, right? You don't have to follow someone in that sense, right? I don't have
Mm.
to follow this study to feel good, eat this much food, this much protein, this much this and that. No, you can start to listen to your own body and follow it. I mean, I've been eating plant-based food for the last 7 years. I would have never imagined it if you asked me a couple of years ago. And it wasn't even an idea. It wasn't even a concept in my mind. And it still isn't. One day my body felt really bad eating meat. And it was very conflicting for me because that was my whole reality. You build
Mm.
muscles by eating meat, by doing this and that.
Yeah.
And my body just said no.
Mm.
And gradually went all the way into plant based. And I got fitter than ever. I got healthier than ever. I got stronger than ever, clearer mentally and emotionally for years because I choose to just listen to that and go through my own belief systems and what I made up to be real. So that's kind of how one of my journeys started when it comes to spirituality. And that's really why I like that name and why it came to me, I believe, because that's what we want to teach people to live with their own spirit or their own
Yeah.
intuition or gut feeling, because that's ultimately what's going to lead you home or to your destination where your destiny is or your purpose.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like there's a big piece of that is in being able to listen and trust, yourself, your inner knowing, your inner information through sensation or through intuition or however that arises, sort of a tuning in. Um, and earlier you mentioned, a key concept that we talk about in TRE is, follow the organism, as you said, because, in a way that's the idea. We we invoke, we help, we show a person how to initiate the neurogenic tremor reflex. Once that has been activated, um, for many people, it's then, or for most people who stay with the practice, it's a way, it's a process of letting go of a bit of control, sensing and following and allowing. And so I kind of hear contained within TRE is, at least some of the same principles around, um, it's a modality where, yeah, you're right. It's not even somebody with expertise like around, say, the fascia, for example. Oh, well, let's free up where the rectus abdominis attaches to the pelvis or something like that. It's not, it's even not that, trust me, there's value in all those therapeutic approaches and the analytical process that goes with it. But in TRE, it's more like create the conditions, learn to listen, and follow. So I hear that connection with how you're defining spirituality. What do you think?
Yes, definitely. It is starts out as a whisper. When I teach people how to connect to their intuition or to listen to the body, they say, but it's so subtle, I can barely hear it. Right?
Mm, mm,
So it start out as a whisper, but once you really connect to it and you slow down, it's super loud. It's super clear. It comes straight away. It's always there for you, ready.
mm,
And I think that really highlights also what you said, it's about that inner listening, and the answer's always there because your body's been with you every single point of your life.
mm,
So the body will not lie to you. It might be confused and you might get different answers if it's out of balance,
mm,
but it will not lie to you and it will always guide you forward. It will always tailor you what feels good or what doesn't feel good. I might have an idea of what I should do.
right.
The body is really like, no.
Yeah.
Let me use an example. When you meet someone that maybe turn out to be a partner and you feel you're very much in love with that person, a common reaction that people say is, I feel these butterflies in my stomach and I feel my whole body is doing this, and I, oh my God, I can't stop thinking about this person, and I kind of go, I'm not sure that's a good thing, to be honest. I used to think that's great and that's love, and when I look at it today, I'm kind of saying that sounds like warning signals. Your whole body is saying something. Your whole body is fixating on something.
Mm,
I
mm.
mean, I'm not
Sure.
saying this as a general rule of thumb, but
Right,
I'm
right, right,
saying
right, right,
that's a concept that we look at as that's love.
right,
That's excitement. That's activity in your nervous system. When
right.
I found my partner that I'm been together with now, my wife, it took me a while to realize. In the beginning, I was like, this is almost a little bit boring because nothing is happening because my nervous system was so used to drama and to this and
Drama, yeah.
conflict and excitement and ups and downs that I couldn't recognize what does it actually look like when you find harmony and love.
Mm,
And I think intuition works very much the same way because
mm,
the mind is so loud today and we have so many things feeding our minds that it feels almost like, why should I listen to this little voice inside? But once you do, you realize it's not a little voice and it has so much information to share with you. Once you connect that to your mind, wow, you have like you can do anything.
mhm. Yeah,
That's really when the magic starts to happen. Oh my God, I didn't know this was possible. Of
yeah.
course it is. Anything is possible when once we start to clear our mind and allow the body to show us the way.
Mm,
But I think that's a big part of the journey to do. And that's why I like TRE because you don't have to go into the story. Many times you don't even have to connect to the emotion. You connect to the body and let the body show you. If there's a story, it will show you. If there's an emotion, it will show you whatever is there in form of a tension, it
mm,
will start to shake it out from the inside.
right,
Not that I go and, like you said, do an assessment and
right.
fix the stomach muscle.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't lie, and it opens you up from the inside. And
Yeah.
that itself is magical for me when I look at it.
Totally. Oh,
Yeah.
man. Oh, Simba, my own nervous system feels good, talking about these ideas and your story and even the energy with which you've put together your retreats and also the academy. It feels good in my nervous system just hearing what you're sharing. So I really appreciate taking this time.
Wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate being here. And, if people want to follow us, then of course they can go to our website, livingwiththespirit.com. Also have the Spirit Academy on Instagram that people can follow. And I think it's really just a journey, it's a journey, like you said. It feels good to talk about certain things because we might all feel them,
Right.
but because of certain reasons we might not articulate it. So that's really what I look at when I look at the module one training. So the TRE provider training programs, you come together and you normalize what you always felt was there, and you do it for long enough time so it starts to change your nervous system together with the TRE. And then you learn how to teach someone else through the process and you become a provider. I mean, how
Yeah.
cool is that?
100%. So yeah, we'll put all the contact information. We'll have it in the show notes here. Um, yeah, website, social media, etc. Is there anything timely, any event based, anything coming up that um, people need to jump on? Anything you want to announce? Anything like that?
Yeah, I do have TRE retreats in November for providers and trainers in Thailand.
Okay.
And that's when they can come here for 1 week, not 3 weeks.
Yes.
And they can learn how to blend modalities into a theory practice. So
Nice.
that will happen in November, and that will be similar to the retreats. We'll have some morning meditation, and then it will be pair-based work.
Yep.
So you will learn, let's say, the stomach massage you learn for yourself. You
Yep.
learn how to do with a partner. And
Yep.
then the third session, how do I add that into a TRE session
Cool.
as an intervention? So
Yep.
that will happen in November. And this weekend, I have a module one training starting.
All right.
Other than
Online.
that, we have things going on all the time that
Yeah.
we will post on our social media and all of this
Cool.
upcoming. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Simba, it's good to connect this way, and I feel like I know you while getting to know you more as a colleague. So I hope that will continue.
Likewise, likewise. It's been an honor and a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. Thanks for listening to today's episode of the Redbeard Embodiment Podcast. To learn more, visit us at redbeardsomatictherapy.com or send me an email at alex@redbeardsomatictherapy.com. If today's conversation resonated with you, help spread the word by subscribing and sharing with others. Hope to see you next time.